Howdy everyone, my name is Avram Plager, and welcome back to my Blender tutorials for 3D modeling. I'm on my PC right now, so the frame rate should be far higher than in any of my previous videos. And I'm recording with a new recording software that I believe both the video and audio should be better. Although please let me know in the comments if anything's off or shifty. But with that, today's tutorial is going to be on going in depth into the Remesh tool that we looked at the other day. To give a good sample object for that, I'm going to delete the initial cube, and then we'll press Shift A to add in a monkey. Blender, this is the only pre-made object that they have, and it's been fairly interesting. We'll scale this up a bit so we can see a little bit better. We'll also delete our camera and our light since we won't be using those. So we only have our monkey for right now. So this, if we go into edit mode, you can see that our monkey is composed of a lot of large faces. As you can see, this is all one face. And then we do have some smaller faces, such as here and here. But we see that we also have some problems because this face actually intersects both of these faces. Like if we pull this face out, you can see this really goes into that face, and that's a problem when you go into sculpting. If you're just in object mode, really that doesn't cause a problem, but when you're sculpting or you want to sculpt something like this, faces going inside each other are gonna pretty much cascade, and they're just gonna get worse. So the way we're gonna fix that is we're gonna go add modifier. And again, to get the modifiers, you go into your toolbar here, and you have this wrench looking thing. If you highlight over it, it just says modifier properties. Go there, click add modifier, and click remesh. The automatic tool you're going to see pop up is Voxel. Voxels are essentially three-dimensional pixels. Like for example, your computer screen is composed of regularly sized squares called pixels. This just takes that and puts it three-dimensional, so these are basically cubes. It's composed of very small cubes and subdivides the object based on that. Right now our voxel size is 0.1 meters. That again is respective to Blender's workspace. This isn't actually the direct size of the object. If we want to get more definition, as you can see, just one down and our shape is almost looking back to normal. We'll take this down to about 0.3 or 0.2. 0.3 is fine. And if we click on this down arrow and click apply, now you can see we have no faces going through each other. If we go into edit mode, you can see also all the faces are, for the most part, the same size and shape. You can see we have some that are slightly more bent than others, but for the most part, it normalized all of the faces, and we also have no faces going through each other. We have no mesh errors whatsoever. And although we lost some definition on the object, we can bring that back by pressing Ctrl Z, bringing back that tool. We can tone this down to even 0.2, or even down to 0.1 if you'd like. Although I really wouldn't go down that far unless you have a really powerful PC. My PC is relatively powerful, but I really don't want to go down past 0.2. You can see going down to 0.2, we lose almost no quality of the object. If we click apply, and now we go into edit mode, you can see the faces are much smaller. And if we look, they're even more regularly shaped and sized. And almost none of our quality is lost. The shape retained almost all of its original shape, and we have no mesh errors. Now we'll add in another monkey head, and we'll press G and X to move this along the X-axis, and we'll scale this up. Now what we want to do is we want to add another modifier. We'll add remesh. Instead of voxel, we'll put sharp. Sharp, you can see says a sharp remesh. The octatree depth is essentially like the voxel size. The octatree depth is the basically the subdivisions that it makes. So what you want to do is press the octatree depth more, and eventually you'll get that shape back. You can see that in these smaller areas, it makes some mesh errors. But if you do have an object like this that, like let's apply this. If we go into our edit mode, you can see that the faces are really, really, really small. However, it lined up, if we select our edges, you can see it lined up all these edges along the edges that our shape already had. So all of these sharp portions of our object were kept. I would recommend though, that when you're doing this, you can see the voxel subdivision kept most of the sharp edges. This kept all of them. You can't see that they're subdivided actually, but if you go to sculpt this, you're going to see that it's protruding those faces, and it's going to be a much more fluid object. You can see there are some mesh errors here. If we go into edit mode and we look at our faces, we can see that there are some faces going through each other, and that's a problem with these sharp remesh. If you're doing like very sharp portions of a mesh, it won't cause those mesh errors. But if you have a smoother portion of the mesh, like here under the eyes where that's almost a circle, the sharp remesh really won't work for you. Now let's add in another monkey head. We'll again move this along the x-axis over to the side, and we'll scale that up. That's good, and then we'll add our modifier. We'll go to remesh, and instead of sharp, we'll go to smooth. Smooth automatically loses a whole lot of definition, but setting that octatree depth up gives us that definition back. Honestly, you really only have to go up to 8 in most cases. And again, you can see the differences between this and this. It kept most of the sharp edges, but it's almost a combination between the sharp remesh and the voxel remesh. In my opinion, the voxel remesh really does the best job out of all of them. But if you're looking at a much smoother object that doesn't have any sharp edges, you can use the smooth remesh. If you have a sharp-faced object with no smooth faces, you can use the sharp remesh. And if you have a combination of the both, you can use the voxel remesh. And now we will look at our last remesh tool. We'll press Shift A to add in a monkey head, and I will move this along the x-axis again, all the way over here. Then we'll scale that up. That's a good size there. Now we'll add the remesh, and we'll go to remesh, and we'll click blocks. Blocks, as you can see, basically takes it and it splits it up into various block sizes that are all the same size. They're cubes. It's similar to the voxel, but it's almost like as if you were building the object in Minecraft. And you can see if we set the octatree depth more, it creates more of these really small cubes. This is a nice texture. If you're looking to make it sort of like an 8-bit type character, you can use a block remesh. Also, this makes the object fairly cool looking in my opinion. We'll go ahead and apply this. Then we'll go into our edit tab, and you can see it's just composed of all of these really small cubes. And it basically just takes the whole object, subdivides it, turns it into these cubes. If we scroll out, you can see really the differences between all 4 types of remesh features. Honestly, Voxel, in my opinion, is the best if you're looking to get all the mesh errors out, but at the same time not causing any more problems with the mesh. And you're not worried about losing a lot of definition. I would go for the Voxel Remesh, if you are willing to take the time to remesh this by hand in your edit tab, you can do that and use the sharp subdivision, the sharp remesh, but this causes a lot of mesh errors. And again, if you're willing to do that by hand, then you can. Same with the smooth subdivision. If you're willing to solve all the mesh errors by hand, that's good. This solves most of them, but it creates a lot of other ones. The block one, I don't find myself using, but that's just because I'm not in character creation at the moment. But this is kind of a nice texture to put on your object. It's three-dimensional, and it looks kind of cool. And if we go inside of our object, you can see it's the same thing inside of it. But yeah, those are the 4 types of remesh tools. Now we'll go over some of the sculpting tools that I did in the last tutorials, so that you can see what remesh does when you're sculpting an object. Let's actually go back into object mode, and we'll select all 4 of our monkey heads, and then we'll take those all into sculpt mode. And as you can see, it actually doesn't take all 4 of them, so you do need to go one at a time. However, if you want, you can select all 4 of them and press Ctrl J on your keyboard. That'll join all of them. And there is a way to unjoin them. I forget what the key tab is. I think it's Ctrl Shift J, but I'm not sure. Again, if you want to edit all of them, you can do that. I prefer to edit just one at a time. So let's just take these back into their single modes. We'll go back into object mode, and we'll select our voxel sub-remeshed one, and then we'll go into sculpt mode. And we'll use our draw tool. You can see if we draw on this, although it looks like this is just one face, if you draw on it, you can see it's made up of a whole bunch of tiny different faces. And if we bring out our smooth tool, you can see it's really easy to make this look like just a very soft bump on the head. We can also take out some of these sharp lines here. We can zoom in, and we can use our fill tool to fill in some of these holes there. So now you can see, even on this shape, there's a lot of different places to test out your different sculpt tools. We can use our fill tool here to fill in some of these crevices between the eyes, and then we can use our smooth tool to go back again and kind of smooth some of those out. We can go into our tool properties tab, and we can take down the strength so that when we smooth it, it's a little bit easier to control. But as you can see, with the remesh, it's much easier to sculpt this object because we have a lot of smaller faces that are much more subdivided. And if we go into our edit tab, you can see we still have no mesh errors. All of the faces are relatively the same size. And if you do run into problems sculpting and it ends up taking some of these faces and really stretching them, you can reapply the mesh tool, and then that'll remesh everything again, and you can continue sculpting. But just an example, these 4 types of remeshes are all different, unique in their own way. They all have their pros and cons, although again, I really do recommend using the voxel remesh for everything, just because it's so easy to control. It doesn't cause any mesh errors ever. But if you do have a high density mesh, it can cause your computer to slow down, which is why some of these other ones can lower the damage on your computer. But again, if you do have even a decent computer, I mean, I'm not running a beast of a computer, but the voxel sub remesh really is the best. But you can use some of these other ones if you'd like. Again, thank you all for watching. I shot up to 86 subscribers recently, which is, I mean, just astounding for me. I really never expected this channel to go anywhere, but it seems like my audience is really growing. So thank y'all for watching, liking, subscribing, and remember to share the channel with your friends and family.